Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I was talking right before the stream started. So we're gonna actually start on time today because I have a guest and I have to be more on top of things as opposed to me kind of chilling in the background while the stream is about to start. I see you already got some people in the chat. Thanks for coming through. And yeah, welcome back to the stream. Today, you might be my first guest on the new stream setup, Chow. Um, as I had, I'm usually doing solo streams on Thursdays, but you've been doing a lot of cool stuff in with this project and Angular. So I definitely wanted to learn more about it because I looked at it some, and the 3D stuff always is very interesting. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can kind of get into things from there.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And it's my honor to be your first guest, I guess.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Chau. I'm a senior engineer at Norwal or NX, working on one repo toolings for developers. On the side, my grave for working with Angular pushes me to work on uh, 3JS integration with Angular.
Hmm.
And I've been doing this for like I think more than a year now, back and forth with like a lot of different approaches, and finally I landed on using Angular Custom Renderer for the 3JS integration, which we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned before, thanks for the people who came through in the chat so far. Yeah, you've been working on this project for a while, and I think the name of the project is definitely uh, pretty cool. So, of course, there is no, of course, for the people who don't know, the name of the project is Angular 3, and it's 3D integration with Angular. But there is no Angular version 3, which is pretty funny. So it brings things full circle. Which it was funny that you chose that name. Well, it kind of landed on that name anyway. Uh, so yeah. Yes, we probably there's people in the chat asking why they couldn't see you before, but now it said it was minor rendering issue. But Child's with us now, and
Gotta gotta put on a custom renderer for my website.
custom renderer. There you go. So yeah, can you just kind of get into like we kind of talked about like at a high level what Angular 3 is, but like why take on such a big project?
Well, big or not, I'm not gonna be a judge of that. I just do it for fun, and
Mm,
also disclaimer: what I'm about to show you guys is not something that um, people is gonna take a look at and be like, "Oh, this is such a waste of time, and I don't want to be here. I'm not gonna be using this in my project like on a
mm,
day-to-day basis, right?" I want you to take a look at it as something that Angular developers can leverage
mm-hmm,
to to do whatever you want to do with your ideas. Because one of the passions that I have for Angular is that I always ask the question of, can we do that in Angular? You know,
mm-hmm,
and I've been seeing all of these like 3D stuff happening in the React ecosystem. I've heard people um, talking. They pick React because React has this library called React 3 Fiber, and it kind of hurts me a little bit. So that's why that's why I've been doing what I'm doing.
Okay, cool. Hey, sometimes that is the best
Spike,
motivation is
spike,
to.
spike driven
Oh my
development.
gosh, let's not. Me and you, we might be like spike driven development brothers here because I feel like I'm doing the same thing. I've said this on Twitter and stuff before. I feel like I've been doing spike driven development just because of where Angular is and feeling like you gotta like go and build these things yourselves just because maybe the support's not there or the library just doesn't exist. So
Yeah,
uh, definitely like to see projects like this one uh, come out of the come out of people's ideas and build on that from there.
absolutely.
Yeah, we got, like I said, we got some people in the chat here. I'll see if we can bring up some of the comments here. Mark says, suspected child's never said no to the question, can we do that in Angular? Hey, there's that you are constantly building things that answer that question with a yes. Whether we can or whether we should or would, you
Yeah,
still.
there is no. There's always yes, but then there's also yes, but.
Yes, but and maybe not today. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I got some steady on mic there. I'll check on that. But yes, tell us more about Angular 3 while I check on that.
We're gonna get into Angular 3 a little bit later in the session. Uh, I want to get into Angular Renderer first. So I'm gonna share my screen. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Jump right into it. Okay. By the way, sorry, audience. Sorry, Brandon. I might have to leave Chrome.
You have to what? Leave Chrome? Okay.
Yeah, I might have to. Okay, I don't have to. See what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah. You were going to run into the,
Permission.
yeah, permission thing.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what I have here is just a brand new Angular application. Right? Just generate an Angular application. You get this, and I have it running as well. There we go. I set up some stylings and stuff like that to support for the Angular 3 at the end. But here it is. It's just a web application that you are familiar with. Now, what I want to do is I want to start using a custom renderer. And by the way, if you are not familiar with the custom renderer um, like term, I bet you are familiar with something like this. So even before Ivy, you are recommended from the documentation or the Angular team or whatever, the Angular experts in the community, is that if you want to do DOM manipulation, you might want to inject the renderer too, right? And then you do stuff with it. And here, I'm just going to do a quick console log to start renderer. And then on this renderer, you have like add class, right? Add style, set style, all of that. And that is what you get. You get a default DOM renderer too. All right. So some of you worked before Angular IV might be familiar with this DOM renderer because you need to use it to interact with the DOM element.
Hmm.
All right, 1 second, I have a guest. Sorry.
Yep. I say we're doing it live. We'll be right back.
All right, I'm back. My
Okay, we're
machine is
back.
here. My MacBook is here. So,
Cool.
all right.
Maybe
So,
does
go ahead.
my mic sound better now for the people in chat? They can let me know. But if it doesn't, then we'll work on that too. But yes,
Okay, for
please
sure.
continue.
Okay, for sure. Oh, and by the way, let me know if my font is too small for you guys.
I think the IDE font could be a little bigger,
Okay.
but the browser was fine.
Okay, give me 1 second then.
Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Are you typing commands in to make the font bigger in your IDE? This must not be VS Code.
Is it better?
Yes, that's better. Better for me at least.
Okay. Let maybe the people comment, suggest, and I'll fix it. All right. Anyway, back to the renderer, and yeah, you're just gonna inject your renderer and do things with the element, because that was the recommendation. Now, with Ivy rendering, renderer engine, and all that stuff,
Hmm.
it is less common to use the renderer to do DOM manipulation. You can just inject the element ref directly and do things on the element ref, or you can just inject the document
Oh
directly.
yeah.
right? You can do document, inject, document directly, and do DOM manipulation that way. Right, so that's the renderer for people that are not familiar with or familiar with it in a different way.
Yeah, I haven't used it's been a long time since I had to like inject that renderer too to try to get anything done because they've created a lot of APIs where you hadn't had to use that anymore really.
Absolutely, yeah. And now the question becomes, okay, so I have a renderer, and you can see that right here is a default DOM renderer 2, but here you just inject renderer 2, which means that there's a different implementation of renderer 2 that you can inject
Mm-hmm.
or you can have, right? And if we look at the renderer 2 interface, so this is all of the abstract classes that you have to implement inside of your custom renderer. And you look at it, there's create element, create comment, create text. Why these names in the renderer 2? And the answer for it is that the API of the renderer 2 is similar to the API of the DOM. If you do document dot create element, that's the create element. There's a create comment. There's a create
Mm-hmm.
comment. There's a create text. There's a create text node, right? So the Angular team, whoever designed the renderer from the Angular team, stayed with the document or the browser API, I guess, for the familiar sense of things.
Mm-hmm. Makes
Right?
sense.
Yeah. All right. So now, if you look for Angular custom renderer on Google, what you find is probably two main things. One is the native script.
Yeah.
So the native script team uses the custom renderer to render to the native UI mobile. Um, and the second is a talk by Nikita. I don't forget his name from the I don't remember that. So it's platform terminal.
Yeah, while you're looking at my buddy Mike Ryan back in the day, he was messing around with custom renderers also. He made one like an Angular renderer for the console or the terminal that you could use
Yeah,
Angular in the terminal. It was a long
yeah,
time ago, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
this
So
might be
this one
something
is
similar to that.
yeah. So this is only 4 years ago, and this was by Nikita from the AVKEO. I don't know how to say that, so I'm gonna spell it AVKEO team, who
Mm-hmm.
makes like admin dashboard, um, and they have like a Nebula UI component library for Angular, and he did a talk on a custom renderer, and he does render Angular to the terminal to the console. So this is the two things, I guess, and I would bet you because I looked it up. Two things that you would find when you look for custom renderer
Mm-hmm.
uh, on Google, which means there's not a lot of resources to build your custom renderer at all. And to remind you, or if you haven't noticed, one renders to the native UI for mobile, and this one renders to the terminal.
Mm.
What does that tell you? That it tells you that whatever you could find on custom renderer renders to a different platform than a browser.
Mm-hmm.
What if you want to extend the DOM renderer? You want to stay on the browser to do things like what WebGL, Canvas, even SVG, right? You want to do all that stuff in the browser, but there's no way for you to extend a renderer. There's no talk about it. There's no discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no docs about it. You just have this like renderer 2 implementation, interface that you have to implement.
Yeah, I dropped a link in the chat, the tweet that Mike Ryan sent out a long time ago. It's been I think the tweet was 6 years ago now. And of
Wow.
course, Victor wrote a blog post about custom renderers
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
long time ago. So, like you said, not much information out there about
Yep.
trying to do this today.
Right. So now let's get into writing your custom renderer uh, that extends the DOM renderer. And disclaimer, we're going to be using private API.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so here I have a renderer file that I prepared because, as you can see, the renderer 2 interface you have to implement a lot, which I implemented. It's like a bare bone of it. Right. So to have your own custom renderer, you have two things. You have to have two things. First is a renderer factory, and this is the injectable, which means that this is the thing that you're going to be providing in your injector. Second, you need a renderer class that's going to implement the renderer to interface. And the renderer class is just a TypeScript class. It's not like a service or anything like that. So because the renderer factory is an injectable, so you can inject things from Angular injectors, the dependency injection system, into the renderer factory, and then you can pass to your renderer via the constructor. And the renderer, and the renderer factory has to have a create renderer method, and then there's going to return a renderer. I'm going to be talking about like what host element is and what type is and what you can do with it and why do you need it in a moment. And here I inject the DOM renderer factory, and you can see it is a private API from the platform browser.
I see.
And I think it's okay to use this private API anyway. It's a library, so it's on me to fix if anything goes wrong. So it's okay.
Right. I think the APIs have been around long enough that people are going to notice if they get removed or changed. So I remember when they removed, what was it, Mark Dirty from the framework. We definitely had to make some changes within the ecosystem to account for that too, because it's one of the rare times they actually remove some of these private APIs that people are actually using.
Yeah. All right. So now in my create renderer, I create the DOM renderer using the factory, and then I return my renderer, and then I pass in that DOM renderer to my renderer. And in my renderer, I just add a bunch of console logs, but then I just return the corresponding method on the DOM renderer. So I still have the same kind of like implementation on my renderer, just to show you guys. Right. So now how to use this? How to use this renderer? A gotcha is a renderer has to be provided on the environment injector. It has to be an environment injector. But for those of you that don't know, environment injector is the kind of like the old module injector that exists on whenever you have like an ng module. But now in the standalone world, it kind of replaces that module injector with the environment injector. And environment injector, you can provide your environment injector in three main places. First is the providers array when you bootstrap your application. So these providers is going to go on the environment injector or merged with the environment injector. Second way is through the route. Right? If I just put const app routes here and let's say routes, right? Path, blah blah blah, and then there's a providers on here. Excuse me.
So if you're, well, I'll let you go through that first and ask the question. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So here, route providers are environment injector. The third way is the view container ref create component. Right, I'm just gonna quickly mention view container ref create embedded view. This is for the template ref, which means that if you have like a ng template, and this is just you have a component, which is a type of, I guess, any component. All right, so create embedded view and create component both are APIs for you to dynamically render something. One is for a component, one is for a template. The create embedded view doesn't have the API to provide a custom environment injector. Create component does. I don't know why. I haven't asked, but yeah. Right. So just so you know, for the purpose of this kind of like explanation, I'm going to provide my renderer on the main.ts on the bootstrap.
So yeah, I think that was leading to my question is once you provide your own custom renderer, that means that you're basically handling all the rendering from that point forward with the custom one or right?
Yep. Okay. So I have Chau renderer factory. Okay. So yes, it is from the moment or the node that you provide your renderer. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say because now I'm provide at the time I bootstrap my application, so everything in my application is going to be using my renderer. But if I have like a special route, I
Mm-hmm.
slap the custom renderer on there. Only that route uses the custom renderer. The rest still use the DOM renderer. So you can have multiple different areas inside of your application that uses different renderer.
Right. So is this something you would do in practice, or I know you've done it a lot of course, you're probably going to show us a lot of this with Angular 3, but um, is this something you would do in practice, or mostly people are just going to take the renderer as is, but you kind of needed it. You needed to do something a little more for your use case, right?
Yeah, yeah. It really depends. What if in like a specific route you want to render some SVG stuff? I don't know. Or you want to render some markdown stuff, but you still want to have the ability to do something on the DOM, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And for this particular use case, I'm gonna explain why I need a DOM renderer. Okay, so now I provided it and I restart. I mean the server rerun reload. We go back to our app. We can see a bunch of logs,
Okay.
and I'm
Cool.
gonna
Yeah. We see we got
simplify.
some.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you're going through that, I can see we got some people. Lars, thanks for coming through. Jason, thanks for coming through. Mark, I didn't mention the other people. Mark, Kate, um, and some other people that I haven't seen before. Henry Martinez, thanks all for coming through. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I just simplify the template so we don't get bombarded with log.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we just have a div right under app root. Inside of the div we have h1, and then we have a span, and then we have an h2 outside of the div, and we just like explore what flows that the
Hmm.
renderer is going through.
So this I'm not going to divert off here too far, but this also kind of reminds me of like in React to where they have like the React create element and
Yeah,
everything was like hanging off the global React object. It kind of feels similar to that, but you kind of using DI to hook into it instead of trying to like hijack the uh,
absolutely.
global one.
Yeah. So if you dig into the React ecosystem, you see that there's always a React DOM library that goes along with React every time you like init a new React application,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you do like a React Native app, you will not see React DOM, you will see React Native. Now, React Native, React DOM, React 3 Fiber, those are the custom renderer of React. And in React, it is called a reconciler.
Mm-hmm.
So React, same thing as Angular, as Vue, as Svelte, Solid. They all have their own renderer interface. In React, they have that interface, and when you pull that like React DOM in, or you can do like create root from React DOM
Mm-hmm.
dot create root. That's when you invoke that reconciler.
Yeah, I see. Cool.
Yeah. All right. So here we have create renderer for the app root, right? And then just going to go through. Okay, I have the app root, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have the div. So it sees the div. The renderer sees the div on the template. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. The Angular sees the div on the template. It's going to call into the renderer, and it's going to call the create element. It passes in the
Mm-hmm.
name of the element tag that you have on the template without any information. And go through set attribute, and then it would do an append the div, try to append the div on the app root. App root is your host element of the app component.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps going through it. Okay, I'm done with the div. I'm going to go into the content of the div, which has the h1. Keep going. Then it has the span, right? And then it's go outside. See the h2. H2 append on
Mm-hmm.
the app component. All good so far. Now I want to. And you can see when I inject my renderer, there's my child renderer. Now there's no longer default DOM renderer. That's my is my renderer now, because I provided.
I see.
Yeah, I provided when I bootstrap the application. So that's why my app component inject the child renderer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's go through a little bit of the flow of this. As you can see, we have nothing that's basically, well, how to say, there is no structural directive, so there's not really any flow that's going to be different from what you see here on the template. We're going to add a structural directive, and we're going to add a content projection. Give me 1 second. I have a phone call. Sorry.
Just imagine there's elevator music going on here, and Giles had to go take a phone call. He's had to go get a package. He's just doing
Got it. We're back.
many things today. Welcome back.
sorry.
No worries.
All right. So we're going to add like structured directive to the template, and we're going to add a new component to the template, and we're going to have content projection to see where the renderer takes us. Okay, first I'm going to just add a quick component. I'm going to call this component foo. Sorry if I type too much because I don't have a generator here handy.
No, I think we're good enough to be able to just type it out here without all the generators and things.
Foo. And then have a content here as well. All right, now I have that. I can import my foo, and I will render. Actually, let's render app foo here. Oops. Foo. App foo. And let's move this up.
There you go.
Back to the Angular 3 stream. All right. So take notice of the CreateRendererLog. CreateRendererLog is whenever Angular's try to create a renderer for a particular component. And here you can see that it's trying to create a renderer for the app component. Right? That's the app root app component. It will not call create renderer for any of the HTML template tags until it sees app foo. It append app foo as the host element onto the app root, and then it calls the create renderer on the app foo, which means that each component you can return different renderer for each component, because that renderer is going to be responsible for that component's template only.
I see.
Yeah,
and that's a little that actually is new to me, because I didn't think that. I thought there was essentially like one renderer, for the whole app that kind of controlled everything. And the point that you, like I said, if you override it, then like that's the renderer you have like going forward for everything. Not that it will ever like recreate itself again.
right. But yeah, inside of the renderer for each component, right? For each component, which with its own template, that's when Angular is gonna try and call the create renderer for that component. Why? Because you're gonna have shadow DOM, right? You can have shadow DOM, you can have view encapsulation none, you can have view encapsulation, and those three have different renderer implementation because of the stylings.
I see.
That's the reason why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say my crazy question for the end, but yes, keep going.
Okay.
Tell me more.
So okay, and now because you know that each component can have different renderer, So how are you going to differentiate that, right? Well, if you look into the create renderer arguments that get passed into the create renderer, there's a type, and this type is the T view, or I'm not going to get into that. That's the Angular internal. Basically, for each class that you have inside of your application, Angular is going to create like a data structure for that. And
Yeah,
here,
I gotta drop this one on the stream because it was too good not to drop. And DNDP said view encapsulation dot chow. I like it. But yes,
okay,
go ahead.
yeah. So here on the type that gets passed into the create renderer, there's this type, and this is your class right here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a decorator. I'm sorry, Brandon, or you can have a static.
Decorators, what are those? No.
You can have a static property on your component to let the renderer factory knows if you
Mm-hmm.
see this flag, use this renderer. And the Angular team actually uses like all of these metadata that you put inside of the component um,
Mm-hmm.
decorator to say, oh, this guy is using the encapsulation shadow DOM, so we're gonna give them the shadow DOM renderer.
I see. Yeah,
Right?
it makes more sense now in the context of choosing a different view encapsulation. But yeah, I never dug deep far enough into it to put two things together.
Yeah. I mean, who does? You don't have a need to. You don't have a need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So now let's take a quick look at what Angular does. I'm gonna quickly take this out and just to see how content projection works the way that we know it works. Right. So it sees AFU, append AFU, and then it would do an H2 inside of the AFU,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it would try to append that H2 on the AFU, right? Hold on, H2. Right. Sorry. My bad. It would create the H2, and then it doesn't do anything with the H2. It will go inside the AFU template, see the div, append the div, and then append the H2 that it create outside of AFU on the div inside of AFU. So the way that content projection works in Angular is that this element right here gets created with the app component context
Mm-hmm.
instead of AppFu context. So when I first get started with Angular, and when I put content projection, right, I put H2 inside of AppFu, I would think that okay, it's going to go into H2, it's going to go into AppFu, create a div, create a text, and then create the H2. But it's not. H2 was created before, and then it
Mm-hmm.
gets projected. So whatever you get created here gets projected.
I see.
So
I'm
that's
gonna
why dependency
I'm gonna
injection.
go off script here just for a second because she
Yeah.
said we got some shady rendering going on here, so I got to put my hoodie on too, so we can both wear hoodies. I'm not gonna keep it on the whole time, but just for now.
Okay. So that's why content projection is a little bit funky with dependency injection. It might not work the way that you think that it's working, but yeah, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Next, I'm gonna add a structured directive to the H2. Let's say it's just gonna add an ngif on the H2 and just say true. Okay. And now you see something different. Right? Afu again. And
Mm-hmm.
then Afu, next to Afu is gonna be the container. What is this container? What is this comment? Right? And then we'll do things, do the div, and you can see that H2 was not created. Right? H2 was created before, it's now it's not. It's got created after the div gets created.
Mm.
And then finally, we didn't see insert before, but now we see insert before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the structured directive. As soon as you add instructor directive, the flow gets confusing. And I'm going to show you that comment is this comment right here. Right. So backtrack to the structured directive. This directive is actually an ng template with the ngIf directive. It's a property binding. Right. That is the complete form of a structural directive. And as you can see here, when the renderer tried to process the template of app root, after it's done with app foo, it will see
Mm-hmm.
the ng template, and here it will try to create a common node, and common node is the DOM common, like browser API common. There's
Mm-hmm.
like the HTML element, there's a common, and there's a text node. So common and text cannot have children. HTML element can have children.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it create a common node, and it just stays there, and then it will go inside of appfoo template to create the template of appfoo. This is the creation phase.
I see. So does well, we see these comments in, of course, in Angular apps for when it's rendering out these things. Does it use any of this information from these
Yes.
comment nodes, or what?
Um, I don't know if it uses any, but they do store information on that comment node.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
And let's just look at the template instruction, what Ivy compiles our component into, so we kind of understand why it does what it does. Let's close this one. This is our app component. Let's take a look at this. All right, app component, app component. There we go. Right, so we
Mm-hmm.
have the app component template right here. Close that as well. So this is the code that Angular compiles your template into. And you can see that at the creation phase, Angular doesn't really know anything about, and not doesn't know, but doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
about your property binding. And because we wrote the structural directive into like a long form, you can see that it's not like anything magic or anything special. It's just a square bracket with property binding with the ngIf input.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets compiled to a property instruction function with the property name or input name and the value or the expression, right? And it is inside of the update phase. So when it first create, when Angular go through your template the first time, top to bottom, it will not deal with property binding. And then
Mm-hmm.
next phase comes in, property binding comes in. Property binding says this one to true. Inside of the ngIf directive, there are code that's called create embedded view, and that create embedded view calls back into the renderer to start doing whatever they want to do with the h2. Let's see where's the h2 right here. You can see that that's a template of the ng template.
Mm-hmm.
So this gets called later.
Yeah. So all the yeah, like I said, it makes more sense now because, like you said, you had the first phase when it's just creating the thing, and but it doesn't, and this kind of follows like how we think about. I'm going to take the hoodie off again because we're not doing any shady rendering at the moment. Uh, but what I was saying is, yeah, where it follows like the mental model of how we think about like inputs and things, how those things work in
Yeah.
components, where
Mhm.
that stuff doesn't like fire immediately when the component is created. There's like that phase in between
Yeah.
construction of the component and then the inputs and things. It evaluates those. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So next, let's just take a look at this right here, right? So we have we selected, so we can do 0 on this one, and we can, come on, man. We have whatever we want to have on it. Guess not. Get debug? No. No. Okay. NG. Okay, let's try this. So we have injector, ng.get injector, and we pass in that 0. We get the injector, right? So here is interesting. The common node actually gets an injector attached to it, and what inside of this injector is the ngIf.
Let's see.
Right? Yeah. So whatever structural directive that you have, there will always be a comment, like the browser comment, get attached to it in its place, and then the information of that directive going to be attached on this common node. So let's say that you have a custom structural directive, and you want to do something before you create your comment. Create the element. You can extract information from your structural directive from the common node. And it actually have your the value and all of that, but I don't know where it is. I think it's
Yes, there's a ton of
right
a
here.
ton of things attached to these nodes that have a bunch of information on them, I'm sure.
Yep. Right. So that's how it works. That's the custom renderer. Now you know the flow. You know that if there's a structural directive, your element gonna get like kind of like deferred, like the instantiation of that element is deferred, and then it will create that whenever the expression turns to true, create that element, and then it will call the insert before to insert that element uh, before the comment that it create in your place in the structural directive.
I see. And that I'm guessing that is move is has some directions there of where it's gonna go.
I'm sorry.
There's a is move right there, and yeah, I guess that's just
Uh,
some extra
just some
information.
yeah, just some extra flag. I don't use this at all,
Okay.
so I'm not sure. Right. Um, so now we have all of that information. Why don't we see how Angular 3 applies this kind of knowledge to make Angular 3 renderer?
I
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
We got
So
the deep dive. Now you're gonna show us some fancy stuff.
yep. Right. So for 3JS, there's a everything inside of 3JS are class based. Right? There's a 3.mesh, 3.mesh basic material, and 3.box geometry. Right. So you have all of these classes. What if you have a rule or constraint on the custom elements tag that you're gonna basically provide along with your renderer? So I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna say, what if I have an entity mesh? Just like that. I say not a no element, of course. It's not a no element. I don't have a component with entity mesh as a selector, which you're gonna have to use custom element schema. The error is gonna be gone, and you can render entity mesh. So look at this. The renderer knows that it accepts an entity mesh. So from here, I can extract out, basically do some string manipulation, get the mesh, and then match that with the 3.mesh. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to use this instead.
So you're gonna create your own element here.
Yep. So you see that it matched? Now I want to install 3. It's type 3. Quick. All right. Back to my renderer. Create element. I'll say if 3 name, return 3 name. New 3 name. Like that. Of course, as in Can I do that? No. 3 as any. Don't do this at home. All right, so now we will try to, there we go. We're gonna see some error, that's fine. Now you can see that after it create my element, which means inside of my create element, it returns a 3 class. It will call the append child with my mesh object. This is from 3. So this tells me you can return whatever you want from the create element. You can return a mesh. You can return a renderer node, whatever structure that your renderer is going to work with. You can even have your own implementation of VDOM if you like, right?
Your own implementation of VDOM. Interesting.
Yeah. So you can keep track of like children, parent, whatever you want to keep track of. Props, like memoirs, props, whatever, right? And now that I have the mesh and all that stuff, the template, you can start like having like property binding. You can do precision on this, blah blah blah, right? And then this is gonna call the set. Let me just comment out. I guess just do a quick try catch. There we go. Now you see that I have a set property. Whatever you have in a square bracket.
I see.
It's going to call the set property.
Give it to you. Yeah.
Now, it will not call set property if that square bracket is an input, is an actual input. So
okay. So it's just treating it like an attribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see I have a mesh, I have a position, I have the value, and now I can attach this position on my object. You can have set property, right? You can have, of course, event. But it's not going to log anything because we don't have any event. Then that's a listen from the renderer. It listen with the event name, with target, and the callback. This callback is the OnClick, by the way.
I see.
Yeah. And then this listen returns. It's going to return a cleanup function. But this function gets called automatically when the template is destroyed to remove the listener. So that's how
that's why we don't have to do all the manual add event listener and callback cleanup stuff. Yeah, I got you.
Yep. So, and then set style, remove style, all of that stuff is exactly what you think what you would expect it does. So, right, so that's the renderer. And I mean, as you play with it for your use case, you're gonna discover new things, and you're gonna discover, oh, I can do that. Oh, man, I cannot do that, and things like that.
Cool. So what? Well, I know you probably got more stuff to show here, but what kind of things did you run into that you couldn't do? That, like, maybe we'll get into that later. Like things that you kind of hurdles that you ran into while you were kind of digging into this kind of stuff.
Right. One thing. As you know, I create Angular 3 really just based on completely inspiration from React 3 Fiber. So I look at their code a lot. I copy a lot of their code, try to model Angular 3 based on React 3 Fiber. There was one thing that is missing, is that when the React reconciler, when they call create element the first time, they pass in the inertial props.
Oh, okay, I see.
As you can see here, when we create the element inside of Angular renderer, we have 0 information except for the name, right? So the THREE.js, some some entities inside of THREE.js requires constructor arguments, like geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you, well, let's say you have a mesh, new three.mesh, and then you have a geometry. I would just do geometry let here, new three box geometry, and it's going to give you a box with the dimension is 1, 1, 1, 1 by 1 by 1. You are going to attach this geometry on the mesh. Right now, your mesh is going to display like a box on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
What if you want to change this box with a different dimension? Well, you cannot just do geometry dot width or equal to or whatever like that. You cannot do that.
Right.
You have to dispose the old geometry. So you can do dispose, and then you do new geometry with a new dimension, and you can do attach. So this is a rule inside of THREE.js you have to follow every time you change the dimension of an object.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
just from looking at that, it seems like you have to create and destroy a lot of things to get it to work
Yeah, but not
correctly.
with just some sub entities that you have to do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
mesh, like there's a mesh position. You can set like new position and stuff like that, which you don't have to
I
like
see.
reconstruct things. But now, what does this tell you or tell me? Now, whenever I create a box geometry from the template, I need to know the constructor arguments of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I don't remember what. Yeah, there we
It's not on its usual keyboard, friends. It's okay.
go. So here I have a box geometry, right? And I need to be able to from the template pass in the constructor arguments. Well, it cannot be uh, an input binding because this gets
Then it's gonna get
like
picked
this
up.
gets set probably way after.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember what I said about structural directive?
Mm-hmm.
Your element inside of structural directive gets what? Deferred, right? It
Mm-hmm.
gets delayed. So what if I have a structural directive called R's and I can do this? So now my R's directive gets created first, and I have access to 2 by 2 by 2. And then when box geometry gets created, I can call from my renderer. I do some logic, get the common node, get the
Mm-hmm.
injector out of it, get the R's directive out of it, get the information, and then call box geometry. So that's the gotcha. That's one of the gotcha, the
Mm-hmm.
biggest gotcha.
So it looks like a structural directive, but you're really just using it to capture some information to pass on to the
Yep,
box geometry. I got you.
absolutely.
Cool.
Yep.
That's pretty clever, I must say.
Well, there's that. It clever, but it has some hacks around it. It has some
Mm-hmm.
hacks around, which I'm going to show you right now and the audience. All right, so that's the code. You know what? Let me just delete some stuff. Right, I'm going to delete some stuff. Um, Gone. Everything's gone now. Right. Okay, we're back to app component. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the style. There we go. Okay. All right, so we're back to like the Angular application without any custom renderer. I'm gonna add Angular 3. Now we're gonna start talking about Angular 3.
Cool.
I'm gonna do ng add Angular 3. Yay, ng add.
Hey, if you're, I've said things like this before. If you're creating an Angular library, you got to create some ng add.
Yeah.
You got to
One
create some
second.
ng add automation in there.
I'm gonna have to stop the local registry real quick here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Stop. Clear. Stable. Okay, one more time to be sure.
It's like rebuilding your whole machine with all these shortcuts and things.
I just doing that. Remove cache.
Yeah, it's still picking up the old version.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna install that version. Let's see what version it gives me. It feels like,
Lars is what's NX Labs experimental Dino. Hey,
hey,
I
you're
saw
not
that.
supposed to see that.
See, that's what happens when you're trying to find stuff on your machine and you show Dino secrets. I saw
1.1.
somebody. I saw somebody from the NX team. I think it was Caleb. Mentioned something about Dino, and he had a picture of a snapshot of some tests running or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not the best kept secret, I'll say.
I don't know what package gives that. Okay. So what I just did is I install Angular 3,
Mm-hmm.
3 and Type 3. 3 just released a new version. God. This is why I went with a renderer approach. You
Mm,
cannot imagine if you have like components wrapping around 3 class, like let's say like 3.mesh, right? And you have like
mm-hmm.
a Angular mesh component. Every time 3 update, you're gonna have to go back and make sure all of your components wrappers work correctly. Now
Mm-hmm.
with the renderer, I don't have to do that because it just new up the 3 class.
I see.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages and one of the main advantages that pushed me to use the renderer approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now
Yeah,
I
because
have.
if you think about like other libraries maybe like this that are basically like wrappers around other things, then like they have to follow that API, and every little thing could be there could be breaking changes in
Mhm.
the downstream library or upstream library. So yeah,
Yep.
less maintenance for you, I would imagine.
Quickly.
So what were you doing? So what were you doing before you went down the custom renderer approach? You were kind of going down that same path of having to update things when the
Yep.
three library changed.
Yep. So I can show you right here. So this is the current version of Angular, current version of Angular 3, like the old version of Angular 3. I'm sorry. There's a core. Inside of core, like there's a bunch of stuff inside of meshes, right? Source, mesh component, right? That's entity mesh, but it is a component, and it's like it just return three
Oh yeah,
mesh,
yeah,
all of
yeah.
this stuff. Even though these are actually generated, I have like a generator to do all of this stuff for me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but still, it's a pain in the butt to keep track and maintain.
I will jump in there and I see you got use injector like 6 months ago. So you're
Oh,
the inject function train a while ago, it seems.
early man, early adopter, early
There you
adopter.
go.
Yeah. So you can see I have to keep track and maintain all of these, and there's like an AST utils. You can see that I do some like um, AST stuff with the typings from the THREE.js library
Mm-hmm.
to provide. Let's just look at one. Let's just look at one. There's a light. There's a light collection, with a bunch of inputs. Right. Let's look at spotlight. Right. This one is generated. Right. Components, nothing too fancy, but look at all of the inputs. Now imagine if THREE.js adds like a bunch of inputs to Spotlight in the new version. Now I have to go back to my generator, regenerate everything, push a new version.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't have any change, but I still have to do that step of a new version to match with the new 3. Whereas with the renderer, you don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can just use the renderer as it is, unless there's a bug inside of the renderer.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not missing anything.
Oh wow.
Yeah. All right, back to the demo. All right, so let's start with renderer with Angular 3. Uh, how much time do we have left?
We got about 30, at least 30 more minutes, but we could probably go a little further than that.
Okay, cool. It's because we have 30 minutes, I'm going to go to the documentation of THREE.js. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. I'm going to copy this code. This is creating a scene. So if you go through THREE.js documentation and you create the first scene, this is what you're going to create. I'm going to copy that. Go back to Angular. Okay, you can actually, let's just do entry on the net and paste that in. Beautiful. But instead of using that, I'm going to have my old canvas. I call this canvas GL canvas. I'm going to view try it. Canvas element ref, HTML canvas element, right? And then renderer. Here, there's a canvas. We can do geo canvas native element. And we don't have to do this step. Save. Back to the demo. Hopefully, we see something. Oh, not this demo. This one. Oh, what's been missing?
I see canvas.
Yeah, but what are we missing? Oh, it's never call animate. So we have to call animate.
Oh, yes.
Right, now we see the cube spinning. Again, this is a straight copy and paste from THREE.js, right? I'm going to pull up Angular DevTools. I'm going to look at the profiler and start recording. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. What's happening?
Please tell me this is not change detection running every time this thing moves.
It is. It is.
That's nice.
It is. Okay, so why? Because Angular 3, I'm sorry, THREE.js, or basically any animation library out there, relies on request animation frame to do the animation, unless you do like a web animation API. But regardless, if you use request animation frame, as we all know and love, Zone.js patches request animation frame. So
yes.
if you use vanilla THREE.js inside of Angular, make sure that you run your animation loop outside of Angular Zone. Same. But if you run things outside of Angular Zone, now you have to take care of things like what if you do an input change? What if you have like an event that you're gonna update some state? What if you have like an async pipe, right? That's not gonna work outside of Zone. Like there's a lot of things you're gonna have to take care of, and that's on the Angular side of things. Now on the THREE.js side of things, if you just do vanilla THREE.js, you're gonna have to take care of this right here. All right, I resized my viewport, and my scene got distorted. So my cube looks funny, and if I like make it bigger, my scene's not gonna get bigger. So there we go. So this is the vanilla THREE.js. We're gonna use Angular 3 to create basically the same scene, but with some difference.
There we go. Then in the future, we'll just have to wait on signals, and then we won't have to worry about Zone.js.
Yeah,
Zone.js anymore.
I am really excited. Did you see my tweet? Like Angular reactivity, please be good.
Oh yes.
That's my
and you got a response from the team on it. So
yeah.
We know they're working on it at least.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do some prep. I mentioned before, one of the 3 ways to provide your custom renderer is through create component, and that is the route that I'm going with, because forcing the consumers to go with the router is a little bit too much, and you don't want to provide the canvas or the THREE.js renderer at the root of your application. So.
I mean, I like to render all my things on the canvas, so I'll just drop it right in there. No, I'm kidding.
All right, so I'm just set this up real quick here with some dummy, and of course you have to have a custom element schema so that your scene doesn't break. Scene crowd.
So you have to explain real quick why you have to have the custom element schema in there.
Well, I can just let the Angular compiler explain it.
There you go. Oh, because you're gonna have an element in there
Yep.
that's not. I see.
Yeah, you have to have it. And by the way, the reason why I go with prefix my custom element with NGT, because if you do mesh on its own, Angular is going to complain because this is not a custom elements. This is something
It's
that,
something they didn't know. Yeah, I
then
got you.
you're going to have to be forced to use no error schema.
No, then we definitely don't want definitely don't want that one.
So
Because then
we
we're just
just,
going to lose all. We don't have granular error checking about things that are there and things that aren't. You're just
yep.
going to ignore everything.
I'm going to use custom element schema. Oops, why not that? Import. Right, and let's see. Our scene will be empty. And you can see there's a canvas right there. That's the NGT canvas component. But our scene is empty. The reason is our renderer doesn't know what mesh means at the moment. Why? If I let the renderer knows what NGT mesh or any of the entities from THREE.js know from the beginning, then I would pull, or I would force my consumers to pull in the whole THREE.js namespace every single time. And I don't want to do that. So I provide an API so you can just add what you want to render to the renderer as you need. Because like this scene graph might be on different route. On this route, you might need like a cube, but on that route, you need a cube. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now just say extend, which is an Angular 3 from Angular 3, and it's going to accept an object with the name and the object that you want to instantiate from 3. And because they match, you can just do mesh. And now I will have a mesh on my scene, and you're not going to see anything because it doesn't have a geometry yet. It doesn't have a shape yet. Right. So next, I'm going to say, okay, this NGT mesh is going to be box. So I'm going to give it box geometry. Let's say nothing there, right? But then
I didn't notice this before, but I like how you just dropped those self-closing tags in there, like like it's been there the whole time.
Yeah, it ingrains in my mind. It's natural.
We gotta be quiet. Somebody from is gonna throw some shade on self-closing tags again on Twitter. It's coming soon, I'm sure.
So here I have a box geometry extend. So now my Angular, my renderer knows about box geometry. Go back here. We have a cube, a box. Right. Now I want to give my box some color, and that is where the material comes in. So it's just say basic material, say color. We do dark red because that's it's going to be, I think, the closest to Angular Shield. And again, you have to do match basic material here. And now I have this. So what are we missing? We're missing the animation. So let's do that. Animation is what? An event. So we have an event called before render. And here to say before render. And this is unfortunate, but you have to do any event object. Why? Because by default, $sign event gets the type of the event object instead of DOM, and this is not a DOM. So this object will be mesh, and I would do rotation, right? Dot x plus that, and this is going to be y. And let's look
Rotating red box. You're gonna have to throw a rotating shield in there after a while. But yes, this works.
Yeah, and let's look at the profiler of Angular DevTools. There's no chain detection running because I rendered like Angular 3 renders the animation loop outside or inside of a detached chain detection. So chain detection doesn't really know about Angular 3 updating. But there are cases that you might need to update stuff, which we're
Yeah,
gonna
that
do.
was gonna be my next question. What if you actually need to,
Yeah.
I don't know, do something with the animated object or something?
All right. So here I'm gonna add some state to my mesh. The first state is hover, and with this hover is say, hey, uh, when you hover, when you have pointer over the cube, set this to true, and you have pointer out, hover to false, and then with the hover, we can now bind to the color state. So if you hover, give me a color.
Blue.
Good. So now if you hover, it's going to be blue. Just take off hover, it's going to be dark red. Look at that.
Mm.
Look at that. Now you can see now change detection is running, right, when it changed color or when the event happens.
Yeah, only
Because
when
the
it needs to know. Yeah, I
yeah,
see.
because the renderer controls all of the like event listener that is not an output.
Mm-hmm.
So I technically can slap in a chain detection dot detect changes when the event happened.
Mm.
So now Angular knows. So all of this is done under the hood by Angular 3 for the consumers. And you can see that I try my best to provide like the similar experience to
Mm-hmm.
the Angular developers. Like you don't really do anything different
Yeah,
except
because
for
at
some
first I was when you or like you have there in the scene graph and you have your NGT mesh there, but you're not like using any imports or anything. So I
yeah.
was wondering how you're like wiring all that together. But like you said, you're extending that or using the extend there and passing the initial that scene graph down into the app component there. So yeah, I see.
Yeah, if you are like doing demo like I'm doing right now, you can technically import the whole three
Okay.
object, and of course this is going to be have to be like mesh, and it will still work. Now, one cool thing about the renderer, right, is that it can do view child. Do what? I can view the mesh. Actually, let's do a mesh here.
Mm-hmm.
Static two. I'll get what? I get the mesh, and it's going to be element ref of three.mesh. And let's not do that. Let's not have that. Let's do this. I have a constructor. Inside my constructor, I have inject before render. And if I have the native element, we'll do native element of rotation x.
Oh, so now you got your own. Is this your own life cycle hook you came up with here, or is
It
this
is the
something
same
in?
thing now. Yeah, it's not it's not a life cycle. It's just injecting function.
Hmm.
But yeah, now you can technically you can view tile, view queries, content queries,
Mm-hmm.
these custom elements, and you get the actual instance of those instead of like the DOM element
Mm-hmm.
or like whatever component that's wrapping it. There's no component. Right. One last thing that I'm going to show, then we're going to go into Q&A. If you want to know more, reach out to me. I'm happy to show you all day. So here, let's show the R's structured directive. And I say, hey, I want this cube to be 2 by 2. Save that. Then my cube is bigger.
I see.
What if, let's say that I want to do like this, right? New behavior subject. Let's do that. One by one by one. Inside of, I guess, entry only net. Let's do a interval. Hi.
Are we gonna create a meme live here? No, I was just thinking about those ones where they, for every 10 likes this thing has, I'm gonna make this object bigger or something like that.
Right. So if it tick divided by 2, I'm going to do 2 by 2 by 2. If not, let's do 1 by 1 by 1.
Mm-hmm.
See how this look. And then we're gonna do is that. So because we're running inside of a detached change detection environment, async pipe is not gonna work because async pipe calls mark for check, and that's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my old pipe, which is the same as async pipe, but it's called detect changes instead.
I
I
got you.
have to do that. I say NGT push.
Looks familiar. We got NGT push. We got NGRX push.
Bam.
We got RX push. Is there an RX push? I think
RX
there
push.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now this is what the Angular developers are familiar with. You can
Mm-hmm.
just you can just buy like a reactive stream to a property or to like an expression as an expression, and it would just react. And I think this is the experience that I want to deliver
Mm-hmm.
with this library, and the renderer allows me to do that.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's amazing, I must say.
Right? And again, I just want to highlight one last point. Why do this instead of Angular? The reason is now you can extract the whole MGT mesh into a component.
Mm-hmm.
You can have many cubes.
Still just okay. Lars said it's still just push. Still just push in RX Angular. Okay, cool.
Right. That concludes my.
Hey, I wish I had some like I wish I had some fancy soundboard here. I give you some applause or something like that. But that was very cool. I like how you went through and kind of showed us like the backstory first of how you did the how you got to using the custom render and how you use that, and then moving on to actually showing us how it works in Angular 3 with of course a small example, but I know there's a lot more in Angular 3 that people can use, but definitely some cool stuff. Yeah, so let's see what we have. I think we had a few questions here. Lars had one here. Does each embedded view get its own, or does each embedded view get its own renderer instance?
Do embedded view get their own renderer instance? No.
Why not? Or do you know why not?
I mean, embedded view just rendering a template. If your template has a component, then that component is going to have
Oh,
uh,
that component's going to get its own
yeah.
renderer. Right. I gotcha.
And you can see that every time it returns create renderer returns has to return a renderer. You inside of your renderer factory, you can have like a cache mechanism
Mm-hmm.
to return the same instance.
Cool. I'm trying to find that, but um, of course, you've been working on this for a while. Do you have any? I know of at least one site, and I'm trying to find it here. Do you know of any places that are using this out in the wild? Even the well, you're just working on the new version. What about the current version that's out there now?
Um, I wish I remember the name, but let me find it. I have him in my DM.
Yes. I know who you're talking about. That's what I'm trying to find. I know it's in my mention somewhere, but I can't think of the name of it right
I'm gonna
now.
put that in the chat, in our chat, right?
Yes, that'll work. There we go. Now oops. I want to click on it now. Maybe if I don't know how it's going to look on a shared thing here, but I'm going to drop the link to that website in the chat there for people to check out. This site runs Angular 3 and
Slowly,
runs NGRX also, which is pretty cool.
yeah. Nginx component store, all zoneless, and is
Yep.
run with Scully.
Yeah, run with Scully. So this is a site here that I mentioned, and I kind of just went through some of this site the other day, and it's even showing pretty well on the shared screen here. It's for a digital agency, I believe, but definitely has a lot of 3D stuff going on here. And like you mentioned before, this isn't even running on the latest stuff, right? Or is it?
No, it's not.
This
It's
still
run.
running on the older
It's,
version.
yeah.
Cool. So it may even it may even get some like performance updates and
Yeah.
things like that once you get the new version out. Because you have you released the new version out in beta or anything for people to try or?
Oh, it's official. It's latest now.
Oh, okay. So
It's out of beta.
it's
Yeah,
out of
we're
beta.
gonna
Okay.
try ng add.
Okay.
ng
So
add.
people can go and try the new hotness like right now.
Yeah, there's a documentation site.
Ah, yes. We're gonna drop that in the chat also.
Yes. Oh, and one benefit of using the renderer is that now Stackbus runs better. I guess before, like with the component wrappings and all that stuff, all of these
Mm-hmm.
like directives, dependency injection stuff that I'm doing to abstract things is too much for Stackbus to handle for some reason.
I see. So yeah, that's better. At least that's better now. You don't have to worry about like stack blitz crashing the crashing the experience of viewing docs. So there's that. Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Let's see if anybody else had any more questions. We'll try to get those in also. Um, my okay, I have to throw this question out here because I always see interesting stuff like this, and it has to do with rendering, custom renderers anyway. Would this let could there be a world where you could use this custom renderer to handle JSX for a template? Is it even possible?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks for crushing my hopes and dreams. No, I'm just kidding. But
Now,
why would you say so?
because you still tied with Angular template,
Yes, that's true.
right?
Oh,
Now, what you can do though is that you can have your component return like a special function, have a
mm-hmm.
special function or something like that, and inside of a renderer factory, you can kind of extract that information out. I
Mm,
talked to Jordan the other day about this, and it doesn't really work. Um,
mm-hmm.
but yeah,
I see. There's another question. Well, I'll first of all say thanks. That saves me a lot of time. So because I know Jordan was looking at this too, but if it's pretty much a no go, then I can sleep a little better at night knowing I don't have to try
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
see how
yeah.
this stuff
I would
works.
not. I would not go down that route,
Okay, cool.
at least for now. Yeah.
Um, Another question was, what would you recommend someone who wants to join this project research to add features?
You. Thank you. Thank you for the interest, of course. Um, what I would recommend is to go through 3JS documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can 3JS has a whole page of examples. You can maybe try to port the examples over to Angular 3,
I see.
right? Or another alternative is to look at React 3 Fiber, look at those, look at their documentation, see what we missed, and try to build a demo.
Mm-hmm. So
And as
you have a good set of things that are ported over from at least things in THREE.js that are available today, but it's not the whole, of course, not the whole library, right?
yep, yep.
I see. Cool. Lars asked, "What's up with NX Labs Dino in that PR?"
In what PR?
I don't know. Maybe he showed something on screen that he wanted to see about Dino. We'll mark that one as TBD, coming soon. Maybe that may be NX secret, maybe not NX secret sauce, but because it's open source, but it'll land eventually. I would say.
Yeah. So next step for me again is to continue working on Angular 3, but on the
Mm-hmm.
side I will be collaborating with the Angular team to make the custom element schema better.
Ah, custom element schema better. Cool. So that'll help. But you won't have to use it as much, or what are you envisioning there?
Can I share my screen again?
Yeah, sure.
this
I'll stop my screen share.
I'm going to
There
whip
we go.
up VS Code. Trust. I'm going to go to app web component. Oh,
Yeah, there
so,
we go.
all right. So right now, if you do declare global interface HTML element tag name map, you do ngT mesh, and you do three.mesh. Right? You save that. You go down to this. You hover over this. VS Code recognizes this as a mesh element, but the Angular compiler doesn't output any properties, any events that this ngT mesh could have. Hence, the language service doesn't have that information. So what if we can try to provide or respect the HTML element tag name map? Well, you still have to use the custom element schema, but now you have some intelligence level that makes the developer experience better. And I think the whole web components, custom elements community in Angular is going to benefit, not just Angular 3.
Yeah,
that's
that would definitely be pretty nice for people who still use Angular elements, custom components, and everything. So yeah, for sure. Cool. If anybody, I didn't see anybody else
Well,
had any more questions.
I mean, Lars, I don't have anything to hide. Just then, so Dino support is coming. That's for sure, right? So today, just a little update today. Caleb and I got the project graph working with Dino project. So there's that. So it's going to be coming.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And it's not even a major release. This is like a
Yeah.
probably just be a feature.
Actually, like 16.7 or something.
Yeah, feature
Or
release.
15.7. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely be on the lookout for that. I didn't drop the link to NX in the chat there, but there's that for people who, for
We're
some reason,
hiring.
don't know what NX is. Oh, yeah, hiring also. There you go.
We're hiring. Go to nx.app careers or something. There's
Oh,
a
okay,
role.
so they moved
Yep.
the page to NX.app.
Yep.
Cool. Didn't know that. I will drop that in the link in the chat also.
I work for NX.
Yes, works for NX mono repos. Well, maybe not just mono repos anymore. I know you got
Yeah.
standalone projects
Build
now.
system.
So
Just like more like JavaScript build system.
yeah, there you go. JavaScript build systems, and maybe more build systems in the future. But JavaScript ones today.
Yeah.
Cool.
No.
They
Well,
are mostly
no.
doing OSS now. So I guess I should show these questions on screen here.
Right.
Mostly doing
So
OSS now.
yeah, most people, yes, most people are working fully on open source now. That's why you see so many movement in like the Angular space, like React space, Vite, like Storybook, because
Yes,
Katerina,
analog uses Vite. Got to drop
Tom,
that in there.
all those people are not on the client anymore. Some of us still on client, including me. I'm still on the client.
For now.
Yeah, for now, until the end of this month or next month. What?
Cool. Well, I for one am excited that it seems like something that was hoped for a long time was that people would get to work on NX full time and wouldn't have to do so much consulting work because that can be a grind sometimes. So glad to see that that has actually become a thing with NX.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah,
Anything else you want to plug before we wrap up?
I just want to plug React 3 Fiber. It's a fantastic library,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic community, and the people behind React 3 Fiber are actually the people behind like Zustan,
Oh,
Yotai,
okay.
all that libraries. So yeah, they are fantastic people.
Cool. Good to know. I've used Sustain before, and I really like the API and everything. So,
Yeah,
um,
I mean, if and when the reactivity system of Angular comes in, that we don't have to depend on chain detection anymore,
hmm
or not having to depend on Zone.js to do automatic chain detection, then Sustain might be a good interface to stay on top.
mm, something to think about.
Yeah.
Cool. And I will leave you with one last question, and then was some of this the talk that some of the things you showed us today? Was this some of the things that you're going to show, or the things that you proposed at NGConf?
Yes.
Cool.
And
Well,
actually, it could have been more organized.
well, no, I know this was a much longer. This is
Yeah.
much more longer, much more
But yeah,
casual version, of course. But yeah.
yeah. My vision for it is that I want to show what is possible with the
hmm
custom renderer stuff, because not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, I think, and it's a shame that NGConf is only 2 days,
Hmm.
in between,
Yeah.
which you get, and those are much more, have a lot more tracks and a lot more talks there. So I definitely think it would have been, I think it would have slotted in like really well on their like second day of showing like projects like Angular 3 and things. So, but I'm sure you'll get other opportunities to talk about it and outside of, this live stream here. But thanks for, like I said, thanks for coming on the stream. I hit you up. He was like, "Hey, when can we talk about this on the stream?" He was like, "Hey, whenever you're ready." So, uh, so we kind
Yeah,
of
the
made
thing
it
is,
happen.
because I've been working on this stuff for so long and
hmm
so much effort went into it, I kind of like just whip it up. Like
Yeah.
everything that I have today, only the renderer interface
hmm
is prepared, because you don't want to see me typing all of that,
Right. You have to do all the
like prep work.
show the niceties up front.
But yeah,
Well,
but it,
cool.
it was all freestyling. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks. I mean, with that, we'll say thanks to everyone who came through in the chat. Chow, thank you once again for coming through. I'll throw the thing out here also. If there's anybody else in the chat, or if you're running a project or building something cool and you want to come on the stream, hey, feel free to hit me up, slide in those Twitter DMs, or ping somebody that you would like to see come on the stream next, and we'll see if we can get something on the books for them too. Because I like seeing cool projects like this one. I've seen Angular 3, but it was definitely good to get a deep dive on the stream and everything to talk about it. So, and then of course other people will be able to see this in the future.
Yeah.
So for the people on live stream, hey, like the video, pass it to your friends, subscribe to the channel, share the video out.
I
All
have
that
something
stuff
else I want
helps.
to plug. I have something
Yes,
else I want to plug.
yes, you
So
have a. Go
this
ahead.
evening, I think, I don't know what time. Sorry, Jason.
Jason. Yeah.
But I'm gonna be on stream with Jason. His stream. I'm gonna drop his stream Twitch
Yes, please do.
in
Yes,
the
he's going to
chat, so
be
people
on.
can follow him. So I'm gonna be on Jason's stream, going through the first step in the documentation of Angular 3.
hmm
So I kind of like, hey Jay, I asked him to do a proofreading of my documentation, and he was like, "Can I do it on the stream?" I say, "Hell yeah!" You can try out like the documentation on the stream to see if you can actually get through with the documentation, right? With the tutorial on stream.
hmm
And I offered to come on stream with him to explain stuff along the way.
Okay,
So
cool.
it's gonna be happen today. I don't know what time. Maybe in
It's
like two
at
three
it's
hours.
at 5:30 Mountain Time,
So
which
it's gonna be
is
6:30
6:30 your time, I
Central.
believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
6:30 Central Time. Yes,
Yep.
6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific,
Yeah.
something
Sure.
like that.
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to drop one more link in the chat here, and that is to your YouTube channel because you stream also. Well, you stream on Twitch. I guess you're streaming on Twitch these days, but uh, streaming on Twitch and YouTube. So definitely check out Chow's stream also whenever he does. He streams when he wants to. So go ahead and find him on Twitter or find him on Twitch and follow his channel there too. Yes, he did me a solid and dropped the link in there, so we'll drop that in the chat. Also, give his channel a follow so you get those notifications when he goes live, and you can come drop in and have some fun there. Because I usually drop in there when I see him come on the stream too. So, but yes, thanks Chau again for coming on. Thanks for everybody in chat for hanging out.
Thank you.
And with that,